Welcome to Beacon of Creation, a weekly podcast on game design through the lens of Magic the Gathering. I'm Tim.
Otter.
Great to have you on. You've been in the Discord for a while now. You've been participating with everybody, and you keep threatening to jump on an episode, and we've got you here today. One of the first interactions I remember is us talking about basically like retro Magic sort of stuff, alpha, revised, stuff like that. We were talking about that a couple months back. What's your kind of background on Magic?
My older brother, who'd learned Magic maybe 6 months earlier, he sees they're doing you win a pack of cards if you win a game of Magic, and they had decks you played with. So he just sat me down and he just farmed me for as many packs as he could so we could have cards. He told me, just lose on purpose. I'll try to kill you as quick as we can so we can get like maybe 6 packs instead of like 8 packs or something. Trying to work on to just get as many as we could. And it was from like Portal packs, like Portal 1, Portal 2,
Okay.
not Portal 3 Kingdoms. So like the good Raging Goblin art with a giant axe and like that Raging Cougar, as I remember as a kid. And then later I got gifted, because one of my uncles got out of Magic, giant amounts of Magic cards. So I'll still flip through Magic cards, look and remember, oh, this old card. It's a 1 mana 2/1, but I have fond memories because the art.
Alrighty. And you've been into custom Magic. You've been participating a lot here, so I know you know a lot of stuff. Today we're going to be focusing on learning a new game, though. We've got a design crossover episode, which means that you're going to be explaining a game to me, and then we're going to be kind of digesting those rules, thinking, why did they do this way? Why did they do that way? And then hopefully also relating it to Magic as well. Like, oh, we could use this kind of mechanic in this kind of multiplayer format. Oh, we could have, an artifact that does something like this. So it's kind of a mixture of learning a game, figuring out some of the rules. I'm not sure we're going to get everyone into, ready to fight shape for Spirit Island here, but we're just trying to like get the kind of like rules highlights of the game as we go. Is this a game you played a bunch?
I've played a lot, but not as much as a lot of other people. It's another lifestyle game, and it's a lifestyle game that's weird because it's a cooperative lifestyle game, and there's a couple out there. But it's also not as big expanded as some of the other like lifestyle games. There's only the base game, small expansion, an intro product, and then 2 large expansions.
Oh, okay.
So not as a whole lot of content for a lifestyle game, but still a lot of content.
Okay, so Spirit Island here, you said it's cooperative. Cooperative makes me think like Pandemic, makes me think like, well, I guess there's some cooperative games that are probably pretty far off from Spirit Island, but one I always think of is Hanabi. I don't know if you've played that one.
I've played Hanabi. First thing I want to mention with Spirit Island is that it is cooperative.
Yeah.
The comparison to Pandemic is a good one. And Pandemic, for me, one of its biggest problems is the alpha gamer problem, if you've heard that phrase before.
Yeah, quarterbacking is another name for that, yeah.
I look at it in Hanabi, which is similar to The Crew, if anybody has played those, they solve that problem by making the whole game is about communicating and limiting people's communication to make that a game.
Yeah, whoa. This is something that I just accept about Hanabi, but I never had thought about how do you do anything like that in Magic? How do you have information that, like resources you have access to that you don't actually know what you have? Like Hanabi, so your hand, you're trying to make like basically like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 piles with cooperatively, but you don't look at your own hand, you just look at everyone else's hand, and you have to sort of indicate roughly things about those hands so that people can make the correct play themselves. Which means that like no one person knows everything. The experienced player can't just say, you do that, then you do that, then you do that, then I'll do this. Then, you can't just like tell other people what to do. You have to kind of, everyone has to work together.
So the 3 I've played is Hanabi, like this, The Crew, and the last one I played is called The Gang. And I think the game might be the easiest to understand if people haven't played any of these, because it's just Texas Hold'em, but instead of bidding to outmaneuver each other, you're bidding to communicate the true strength of your hand. And you're using the bidding system of Texas Hold'em to communicate your hand and to, as a group, cooperatively sync all your hands to be in the correct position.
Everyone sees their own hand. They don't see the other hands. And so you're looking at your hand and it's like 2 pair, which is a pretty solid poker hand. And so you're saying like, I think I would like to have this like, was it 1 through 5? I think my hand is like a 4, maybe a 5. Anyone feeling that? And then like someone else who's just looking at like total dreck is like, please just let me have the one. I'm terrible. Where you're working together, but no one can have all the info.
I personally like those cooperative games a lot because it is so much fun to use another language to communicate ideas to people.
Yeah.
I think the closest I've gotten with that in Magic is using a Magic card to get like a code names or like a catchphrase clue across. Like I can say eternalize and my brother's like, "Oh, mummy," clearly, and nobody else is going to get that.
Or like, remember that card from the finals of that draft? And then your brother says, "Oh, dead weight. You have dead weight in your hand." Okay.
I think for playing it in Magic, the closest I've gotten was I don't know if you've ever done like team drafts and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
Hmm.
I did one recently where I thought it was going to be more just all of our scores were tracked at the end, but it turned out we were actually sitting next to each other and we were allowed to discuss with each other at the
Yeah.
table,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
was way more information than I was ready for, which made me completely regret my choice of deck because I was playing control and I had the middle seat. And I
Yeah.
would have much rather played aggro and then helped my allies play after I finished my round.
I think team draft might be like our way in to bridging some of this info because team draft, or at least a traditional one in my mind, is like a 6-player draft where there's 2 teams and then the players sit alternating each other in the draft. So it's team A, team B, team A, team B. So you're not next to your teammates, you're next to your enemies, and your teammates are sort of diagonal from you. They're 2 spots away. And so you would love to communicate a lot of info to your teammates, but if you just say it out loud, then of course the other players can hear you. So is there something like a mechanic on some of the cards? Is there like a lot of these games like Hanabi or The Gang have almost like a protocol of what you're allowed to say or not allowed to say? Like in Hanabi, you can say like a specific color or a specific number, but you can't give a whole picture all at once. Is there something that we could do in Magic where we can have a protocol about what you're allowed to talk to?
Magic players are so tight on protocol.
They will learn a protocol. So if we can find a protocol, they will obey it. Yeah.
But I find myself so more often wanting to be like, hey, let's go play the crew. It's a different experience. Then
Okay.
we could jump back into Magic. But then I
Mm,
do find occasionally I'm playing another game and having that ability to kind of read the room because you're reading the subtleties of what they're not saying is kind of important.
mhm.
In Hobby, you're not supposed to use those. You're supposed to only use the limited protocol
Yeah.
versus like Magic, you are supposed to like read people's like hand emotions and stuff. And some people try to outgame that and then looking at it now being like, yeah, I guess you're doing scummy things sometimes when you reach for your life pad too quickly.
Yeah, you watch your opponent draw their card and then you look to see if they look at your cards after they draw their card because that will indicate that maybe they have interaction or something. Well, we'll have to keep our mind open. Maybe as we hear some of these mechanics, we'll get some ideas. So Spirit Island, like in terms of board games, there is like an actual board, right? There's like terrain and stuff.
Yeah, there's a physical board. You're gonna have
Yeah.
the central island board, and you're
Okay.
gonna have your own player private boards.
Oh.
But I want to circle back real quick on one more thing with the cooperative
Oh.
element. So
Yeah.
it is close to Pandemic, which I guess the closest thing in Magic would be if you've ever played against that Hydra or Minotaur horde.
Yeah, the kind of auto playing decks that you have to
Yes.
defeat. Yeah.
And you're gonna be doing the same thing here, where the adversary is just gonna take actions and you're gonna fight against it. And this game even says, hey, you for some things you get to control the adversaries, and you could choose whatever you want it to do. So if it has a choice of
Mm.
doing A or B, you as a group get to decide, do you want to do A or B, which is good because you get that agency and you get to feel clever, like I made it do A, and we get to even exploit the fact that it did A versus if it just randomly chose A or B.
Hmm. I'll have the monster go that way, and then you be ready and just clobber him the split second he gets there, kind of thing.
Yeah. And I'll say the other ways, so I think the good cooperative games that solve the alpha game problem, because I don't enjoy Pandemic, because I
Okay.
can probably pilot 3 Pandemic characters at once, probably.
Yeah.
We play
Yeah.
a lot of Magic. Most of us probably can play a simple game like Pandemic with 3 people deep. Maybe not Pandemic Legacy when it gets more complicated, but
And
eh,
I think that the tough part is like I think we could win more if we just collaborate every single piece of info. really drill down into exactly what we should all do next. If we sequence our turns really precisely together with teamwork, we would win more. And that's the kind of like that's where the instinct comes in. Like if we just paid more attention, if we just had one person tell everyone what to do, we might actually win better. But we want to push against that gameplay wise because people don't get to play for themselves.
Well, except for this one isn't. They don't they have a if you wanna add a scenario to this game, there is a limited communication scenario, but
Okay.
it actually does encourage you to communicate and plan out your
Okay.
full turn ahead.
Hmm.
It's just gonna beat you with difficulty and complexity is its solutions. That I can't pilot 3 spirits at
Oh.
once. I can pilot 1 very well, and a lot of times I pilot 2, but that 3rd spirit really starts maxing out my brain
Hmm.
because this is not like Pandemic. I guess the biggest thing this game brings that is different than Pandemic is Pandemic brings asymmetry that is 1 to 2 sentences long,
Hmm.
and these spirits bringing asymmetry, the equivalent of bringing like a commander deck to Pandemic.
Oh, okay. So you're saying like by asymmetry, each player has a different set of powers. Um, in pandemic, yeah, it might be like I get to move an extra time, or when I heal someone better, and that's like my whole thing. That's the only thing that differentiates me from another player. Whereas you're saying like in something like Spirit Island, it's more like a commander deck. I have totally different game mechanics. I might be able to act like break the rules in completely different ways than everyone else at the table.
So I got Root, played that, and then I played Spirit Island later, and I loved Root's asymmetry, and it has even a bit more, I
Mm,
think, more asymmetry in Root than there was in Spirit Island.
yeah.
But the cooperative nature made me enjoy when, like, people at the table I'm playing with are doing crazy different things. I celebrated it because we got to do better and win,
Mm.
versus in Root, and I'd say in Commander the same thing, when some people are doing asymmetrical things, it feels terrible sometimes.
Oh, because their thing is just so orthogonal that no one else can be ready for it.
Oh yeah, like I'm mature enough to not hate Mill, but I'm running into a lot of Commander players who are not mature enough to
Uh,
understand Mill is orthogonal of the normal game, and
yeah,
that's fun and okay,
yeah,
but it does suck when you're playing into Mill and your deck just doesn't have the tools to beat it, and it can
yeah,
feel terrible.
yeah, yeah. If it's so far off to the side, it's like, well, we can't answer anything you're doing except to just target you. Like that's the only way that we can answer you with something like Mill. We can't gain life out of it. We combat doesn't matter. Nothing else matters. It's just like eventually in 3 or 4 turns, we will all have no cards in our library, and I guess we just have to kill you before that happens. Magic is kind of funny because I think there's supposed to be like a lot of asymmetry because of the colors and how you mix the colors. But to some degree, that has sort of like I don't know if it's fully homogenized. It might have started kind of homogenous. Like the colors aren't so different from each other that they feel completely different. It's typically more the deck composition, like you said, a mill deck that actually gets you to something that's really unusual.
I think Magic does such a good job of balancing the asymmetries on the subtle level and then the overt level. Like the
Hmm.
subtle level, as you're saying with the color pie, where it's like, oh, I have access to blue and red, you have access to red and green, and so obviously the difference is I have access to blue cards, you have access to green cards, and those differences, those colors will shake out.
Hmm.
And I think that actually works at a very different subtle level when you also go to, oh, I'm playing a mono creature deck because my deck really values creature cards, and you're trying to shove as many sorceries and instants into your deck. So
Hmm.
you're finding, a disenchant in your deck, and I'm looking for a Rex Sage because it's a creature disenchant. And so
Hmm.
you can get an instant speed one, but then I don't get to get instant speed disenchant on a creature. That's just not something we've printed so far.
Yeah. Yeah. Like in limited or something where I don't have total control over my deck. They make those decks feel different by having like color pair archetypes and stuff like that. But fundamentally, like most of the decks have to play a 2 drop on turn 2 to like not fall behind. You want something in 3 or 4 that's a removal spell to stop something really bad. Like there are certain shapes to every deck that you kind of want in limited. Um, yeah, so like kind of like you were saying, we have to make the decks feel different on a higher level. Like it's just like what are the themes of my deck? What are the kinds of effects that I'm using? I'm using all sorceries, and I'm using sorceries to generate my creatures that can then block for me.
Yeah, and I'll say Commander is one of the reasons I think it's so popular now is because it makes that overt asymmetry so much larger. Because you have a commander that says creatures
Yeah.
matter, or he
Yeah.
gets better if you have sorceries doing something.
Yeah.
And Spirit Island does this thing where as you play, you're going to draft cards. You're going to start with some that
Oh,
start in
okay.
your hand. And as
Hmm.
you play, you'll get access to drafting more cards.
Hmm.
And maybe one of the weaknesses for the game for me is it's unfortunate when I see somebody else has drafted a card that I would love to get,
Hmm.
but there's no access to that. There's not when you open up you draft cards, it's not going to be passed around like a Magic draft. You're
Hmm.
going to draw four from the deck of options. You'll take one and then discard the rest.
Hmm.
And there's very few abilities to go into that discarded pile or grab from other people.
So is this like a Dominion or the Slay the Spire or something where I start with like 10 starter cards and then I'm slowly replacing those or bulking up the deck with cooler cards?
No, the loop, which I messed up when I first played the game,
Yeah.
is you're going to play your cards. So, like, imagine you play two cards on turn one, then two cards on turn three, and then you have like one card in your hand, so you'll get another card you'll draft, play
Hmm.
two more cards, and then you'll take a turn to reclaim all of your played cards back to your hand,
Hmm.
and then you'll play two cards that turn, and three cards the next turn, and then three cards going forward. And
Hmm.
you'll kind of have this loop of playing most of your cards, picking them back up, putting them down, and sometimes you maybe want to do an early pickup so that you can
Hmm.
play specifically the cards you know that you just played the turn before because you need it again.
Hmm. Okay. So you don't naturally draw cards. You occasionally draft additional cards. Is that sort of what you're saying?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
most spirits on average will draft a card every other turn,
Okay. Okay.
and some
So it's,
spirits will draft much more frequently, and some even,
yeah.
I know
Hell
one or
yeah.
two don't want to draft much at all
Hell
because
yeah.
it's not important.
So I'm trying to understand this concept generally. I know what you're saying, but I'm trying to think through like it's we don't just have we don't have like a big deck that we're regularly getting cards from. We have like a limited playbook of cards. What'd you say, 5 you start with?
You typically will start with four.
4. Okay. And then I play a couple of those depending on the turn. Some cards might be better than others. Um but like if I'm not drafting that many cards, I'm mostly sticking with the same couple cards all game. Is that about right?
Yeah, I think you'll end up with like a lot of times you'll see options, a decent amount of options when you're drafting, but you'll end up only
Okay.
probably gaining about eight-ish cards at most.
Hmm.
And it's really looping, so if you draft a card early, you'll know you get to play that card about 3 times,
Hmm.
which is something that Magic doesn't have that's a little bit sad, is getting to replay cards over and over again. Like, Flicker decks do this sometimes, I
Yeah,
feel like.
you could regrowth or something to bring a card back, but like the emphasis in Magic is on having a very large, pretty random stack of cards. There's been like Pai or Blitz where you have like you open a booster pack, you make a bunch of tiny decks, and then you play those against each other.
Oh yeah, Pyga's fun.
Um, yeah, and that feels like it's a little closer to what Spirit Island is doing, where you're sort of like you've got a couple cards and you see how they play out. In Pai you're doing like basically like a best of 3 or best of 5 off of just a small pool of cards. But maybe we're in that same area where I have like some small nucleus of cards that I'm using. I don't know if you could imagine playing like 10 games in an hour and a half because your games are quite short. Maybe that's a little closer to what at least how the cards are used in Spirit Island. The whole gameplay seems like it's going to be totally different, but uh, your relationship to the cards that you have is I don't know, much more specific maybe.
One of my favorite things about Spirit Island is the general system, it's like hand management, if you're looking up tags for this on other games.
Hand
The other
management.
game I
Okay.
know that does this is Century.
Okay.
Um, Golem Edition's better because it's prettier, but you can pick which
Oh.
one. Um, was that the playing and looping of your hand over and over again, I think
Yeah.
might be closer to playing multiple games of a draft deck.
Yeah.
Some sense where you get to see that one card a couple times over, and the variance comes from the next time you do the draft, you'll end up with a different pile of cards.
Hmm.
The big difference emotionally for me is like if I draft a card, I know there's not going to be any variance of me not seeing it for the rest of the game. Versus in Magic, you're going to draft Armageddon, and you won't see
Hmm.
Armageddon in games 7, 9, 12 of your draft for the night.
Hmm.
Or maybe you only see it in games 2 and 4, and you
Yeah.
don't see it in any other games.
Yeah. Maybe a little bit of what we're thinking about is like, what if I had a command zone of 4 cards and my starting hand size was like 2? I have like a little bit of a flow of new random cards from a deck, but I also have this like playbook of 4 cards that I have full access to. And so those I see all the time, but then in Spirit Island, the drafted cards in Magic, maybe a deck of cards. I have a trickle of kind of new stuff to mix up that like kind of locked in stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of that is really face up, which I don't know how it is in Spirit Island yet, but in Magic, having a ton of face up cards that are relatively complicated is kind of considered a design no no. Because like, oh, I knew you had that counter spell. I shouldn't have played that. Ah, like, losing because you just lost track of the face up information isn't always that fun. Not to say it can't be tried, but I don't know. Because then, like the command zone is a little bit like what you're talking about with reclaiming. Is that what you called it? Reclaiming your
Yeah, it's called
cards?
reclaim is the action.
Yeah. So, like, you have to take a turn off in Spirit Island in order to reclaim your cards. In Commander, you have to just pay more and more to replay your Commander. If you imagine having the stable of 2 or 3 or 4 command zone cards, I eventually, have a harder and harder time reusing those. But eventually, like, given enough time, I can cast my commander 6 times if the game went really, really long.
I need to correct myself and you there a little bit.
Sure.
You don't take a full turn off.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
every spirit's going to have you start with the growth phase every turn. For simplicity, you have like 3 growth options. Some
Hmm.
spirits are going to have tons of small options that you get to like pick menu wise, and some are only going to have the 3 generic choices, and some
Hmm.
it can go crazy weirder, but that's simply so you have 3 options. And so you might have one that is reclaim all your cards and gain an energy, which is
Oh.
the resource of the game. Think of it like treasure tokens. The next one is you can deploy a presence. I'll go into that in a second. And maybe you get to draft a card. And the third option lets you deploy 2 presents or something.
Hmm.
And maybe the other spirit you're going to play with, that person has the only way to gain cards is in their reclaim option, also is their draft card option.
The cards you start with or the faction you start with like really change even the basic mechanics of the game.
Oh yeah, there's a spirit that they have those options up there and it says pick 2. So they have the reclaim as just one of the options. So for them, it takes very little to reclaim
Hmm.
because they can pick
Okay.
any other thing they want. And they can even have some bundles. Like some of those can even take mana to activate that growth option
Hmm.
versus giving you energy. Sorry, versus giving you mana or energy. I'm sorry, I'm gonna do some
Wow.
interchangeable.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the asymmetry starts right there.
Yeah.
Some spirits are like every turn they're going to put out a presence. Some spirits only have one option that puts out presence.
Hmm.
Some spirits have deploy 2 presents. And a good way of thinking about presence is like hitting your land drops.
Hmm.
You're going to have every spirit's going to have 2 tracks. And the top track is typically their energy gain, how much energy they gain every turn,
Oh, okay.
basically. And then their bottom option is how many cards they get to play for the turn.
Oh,
So they
okay.
start at 1, some can get up
Hmm.
to 2 really quickly, some take a while to get to 2, and then some can get like 3 or 4 up to 5 card plays a turn.
Hmm.
Because it doesn't matter how much mana you have if you're limited on card plays.
Let's say I have 5 energy. Whether I have 1 card play a turn or 5 card plays a turn, I still have 5 total energy. So if I wanted to play 5 cards off 5 energy, I'd need to have 5 one energy cards.
Yes, one of the spirits, one of their biggest things is if they have very little energy gain, but they have tons of card plays, so they want to draft a lot of cards if they can, and they want to draft a lot of low-costed cards
Hmm. Hmm.
because they also need
Okay.
the energy to play them. And there are zero-costed cards in this game, and they're very useful even just in the fact of it's a card play, and we all know from Magic rectangle theory,
Yeah.
playing cards does
There you go.
things.
Shout out to Lords Unlimited. Yeah.
So everyone's gonna have a growth phase where you pick your growth option, you then gain your energy from your tracks, and then you queue up all the cards you want to play for the turn.
Depending on my faction, I pick 1 or 2 options. I either get like the equivalent of some mana or some, a draft or getting my cards back. I get some combination of that. Instead of untap and draw, I have like a menu of things specific to my faction, right? Like it seems kind of interesting how different these are just in their basic like mechanics of their turn. So I do that, and then once I've done that, then I have to sort of like pick what I'm going to play for the turn, and then does it so everyone's picking at the same time? Is that sort of the idea?
Yeah, and since this is other than drafting, which is the only luck thing that's going to happen in this window, you
Yeah.
can kind of go back and like redo things. So some people in meta don't want to do that because that's their own choice as a cooperative game. Versus, I could be a really lenient player and we can like redo and be like, oh, you're going to do this. Oh, that means I can take this growth option because I don't need to worry about that problem. You're solving that
Hmm.
problem for me. I'll take this more greedy growth option that gives me more long term benefits instead of
Uh,
solving the problem right now.
like you can cover for each other basically. Like, feel
Yes.
free to ramp and draw cards this turn. I will kill. I'm making this up. The goblins and keep us safe.
Or play less cards this turn so that you don't have to reclaim and you can have more cards for next turn, theoretically.
Hmm. Hmm.
Now, it's rare you ever get like a full free turn,
Okay.
but you might do a partial, like maybe play two of the three options you had available to you.
Hmm.
And this is a game with a lot of exceptions. So when I said there's a
Yeah. Seems
reclaim
like it.
all option, someone
Yeah.
on their growth tracks might even have an option to every turn they can reclaim one card.
Oh. Okay. Yeah.
So maybe you'll even just dig on that growth track because you have the
Huh.
two, and you'll dig on one of them to get to that spot, and then you'll dig in the other row.
Hmm.
Or you might do a mix as you're digging through, kind of putting out your presence from those tracks. Because what you do is you physically have them covered up with your discs, and you take your disc off to put them onto the main central board, and that uncovered symbol now affects your board, either increasing your energy, increasing your card plays, or giving unique symbols like reclaim one.
Hmm. Interesting.
So also spirits have presence on the board, and this board is not a rigid like rectangle or hexagons. It's a kind of artistic squiggles onto these
Yeah.
things.
But it's kind of like Risk or whatever, like any sort of area game. There are
There we go.
soldiers or whatever on different regions in a map.
So I'm going into the map now because that's what matters. I think a lot is you have this map where you have your presence. You have these Dahan characters, which are representing natives, people of the island, and then you'll have
Okay.
these invaders. And this
Hmm.
might be the most thematic thing in this game. The
Hmm.
invaders in the default when you buy the game, not the intro product, but the base product,
Yeah.
all the invaders pieces are plastic. So the
So they're
explorers, the towns, and the cities are all plastic pieces.
oh, okay.
But your presence tokens and the natives peoples are wood. This is an active choice of the designer because the tag of Spirit Island is the cooperative settler destruction strategy game.
Hmm. So this is defeating the colonizers kind of thing.
Yes. He took the paradigm of setting up like a Catan-esque game where you guys are exploring and settling the land. It's
Yeah.
instead you're playing as spirits to unsettle the land and get all these invaders, because they're called invaders, to just leave the island.
Yeah. Okay. Hey, why not?
Mechanically, I have looked into some things and tried to figure out like could you flip this into the things? And yeah, you probably could flip it to make it mechanically you're settling the island and you're just trying to get
Sure.
rid of barbarians or something. But I like that he did find that active choice, and a lot of the lore he's baked into the cards and some of the thematic stuff he's reached into from that, I
Yeah.
think makes the game feel different.
Yeah. Yeah. It's all defensive, basically.
So once you've queued up all your cards, you're going to use some of them, which are the
Okay.
fast cards,
Oh.
and then the invaders are going to take their actions.
Hmm. Okay.
The invaders are going to take this big action, and then you get to use all the slow cards you queued up.
Okay. So having like kind of a step in the middle. I mean, if this is in Magic, this is like there are cards that I'm allowed to play first main, and there are cards that I'm not allowed to play first main almost. Uh,
A
because
magic
this,
card you have to commit to in first main, then go to combat, and
yeah.
then have them recommit. I think the closest feel is suspend,
Okay,
because
suspend.
it's more like you play them, you have to let the opponent attack you, and then you have to cast the card.
Yeah, yeah, because a turn cycle is a little different in Magic than this kind of simultaneous thing we're talking about here.
Yeah, they
So,
even have a spirit where their big thing is suspend, oddly enough, where they can queue up cards into suspend zone and then
hmm,
fire them off in later turns.
hmm. We've had like a plot or foretell, which are sort of suspendy. I put a card away and I get to activate it later, or even morph is a little bit like that, where I set this aside, it's in exile or whatever, and then in the future it comes out and I get to play it. Is there room for a little bit of suspend, like short suspends, or is there something about like suspend one, suspend two that is not that fun?
I think the closer we got were sagas,
Oh, okay, yeah, sagas,
and I know
sure.
you don't like sagas, but
Everyone knows this about me now.
I keep wanting to
uh,
define sagas, and I know Tim's not gonna vote for my saga. About it.
Flush it down the drain.
What's weird about these is you don't have to pick your target. So in this game, it's gonna have, like,
Yeah,
magic rules where you have targeting limitations and such, and I do like
yeah.
that you have to queue up and just kind of some cards you have to kind of bank that there will be a valid target when things roll
Hmm.
down during the
Hmm.
after the phase,
I guess
which
depending on the game, like whether there's like if I have to queue up a lightning bolt on turn one, and then on turn two it's going to fire off. Well, I'm like, well, what's the chance that there's even going to be something to shoot? I can't really do this, and maybe that's why it's not quite as fun in Magic. But if there are all these invaders everywhere, there's hopefully something that I can target. Maybe it's not perfect, maybe it's not optimal, but at least there's somebody to shoot.
did you ever play Unstable?
Yeah, sure.
I got the crank the yeah, just trying to remember which one it was called.
Contraptions are a good example of what we're talking about. They're kind of suspended. The contraptions in Magic are these like artifacts that like fire off once every 3 turns. You can try to put them so they fire right away or fire later, but you only get them every 3 turns.
So, I got multiple copies of Mandatory Friendship Shackles in a Unstable draft one time,
Okay.
and it was a weird question. If you went turn 1, play a guy who automatically assembles a contraption.
Okay.
Which spigot should you put on sprocket? Which sprocket should you put it on?
Let's read this card here. So when you crank this contraption, target creature gets -1/-1 until end of turn. Yeah, this is a great example. In a one-on-one limited game, there might not be that many targets. Yeah, okay.
And what's odd about this interaction I found when I was playing this draft was if you I was an aggro deck and I
Hmm.
wanted to just pressure you down.
Yeah.
So if you played any X ones, this is going to kill it. So even it
Hmm.
just sitting there threatening you meant you didn't want to deploy it.
Hmm.
So the close, if I put it in Sprocket 1, it immediately means whatever you played, I get to kill. But if I put it on Sprocket 2, you didn't want to play anything on turn 1 because you knew you'd keep it alive for one turn, then I kill it.
Hmm.
But if I put it on Sprocket 3, which would kill your one, was that too delayed? Would
Yeah.
people be willing to throw something in 1 knowing that by the time it gets to the third
Hmm.
Sprocket, they'll have something to do?
Kind of like onboard removal or stuff like that is maybe a little bit more oppressive in one-on-one. Because I imagine like if you had the shackles here, or even like -2/-2 shackles in multiplayer, like there's probably like 3 different targets for you to choose from. So it's like more tactical, maybe more fun, a little less feel bad for everybody else. Like the absolute most powerful thing will get targeted, but some other kind of cool cards still get to live. Hmm.
So one of the advantages of Spirit Island is the little robot invaders, not really robots, they're
Yeah.
colonists. They have
Yeah.
like the conquistador flair, if
Oh,
you
okay.
imagine.
Oh, all right. Yeah.
It's set kind of in that era, and explicitly
Hmm.
you do battle against. You can battle against generic invaders, or you can
Hmm.
specifically battle against the English colonists, or the France colonist, or
Oh,
the
funny.
Habsburg mining cunning colony. Habsburg mining colony,
There we
and
go.
those add different mechanics to them.
Hmm.
So as you're fighting them, they are going to act predictably, and so you feel smart overcoming their predictable behaviors.
Hmm. Yeah,
But
this
in
is
a multiplayer game, people are not. If they're predictable and it feels fun, but it can feel bad if you were caught because you were predictable.
this is where you're talking about like we know this is coming. Like I played a little bit of Into the Breach, which is like like a square based tactics game where you're in little mechas, and it's you play out your whole turn and you're playing against AI. But at any point you can like basically rewind your whole turn and redo the whole turn because the AI is telegraphing what it's about to do. And you can like start to figure out your turn. There's no randomness, so if you don't like it, you can redo it until you really like the outcome. And here, maybe that, and rather than redoing it, you're just like having a conversation over and over until you really lock in a strategy.
That's pretty close to Spirit Island's like gameplay loop.
Oh, okay, yeah.
There are some moments of variance that I think add some discussion.
Hmm.
So let me go through the invader phase so you can understand this and see what like nuances come out. So
Yeah,
the
yeah.
first thing the invaders do is they'll have a queue of lands. And by lands, there's like mountains, wetlands, forests,
Oh.
and deserts. So the island is populated. Every island has two of each land type.
Oh,
So let's say
okay.
we're doing in the sands, they're going to ravage, which is the equivalent of the attack step in Magic.
Hmm.
He took a lot of inspiration from Magic. You can see as a designer from here.
Sure.
They're going to ravage. Then, after the ravage step done, they're going to build in, let's say the next thing in the queue was wetlands. They're going to build in the wetland spots. So, everywhere in the
Hmm.
wetlands where it's valid to build, they'll build.
Hmm.
You knew this was going to happen because those two cards were there. You then
Hmm.
flip over a card from the top of the deck, and that gets added as the explore spot. And let's say it says wetlands. Now you'll explore into the wetlands. And
Hmm.
you'll look down and you'll see desert, wetland, wetland, and then you'll slide them over. So now the desert gets discarded, and next turn you'll know they'll ravage in the wetlands, they'll build, because we had wetlands twice, and you don't know where they're going to explore.
You kind of know what actions are going to be taken, but not what the turn after that is going to, like, where they're going to move after they take their actions.
And a key part of that is also the way you construct the deck, kind of like Pandemic, where you seed the deck somewhat. You can
Oh,
know
okay.
there's going to be some predictability that they're going to go, like the default start is there's 4 land types, and there's
Hmm.
3 phase 1 cards. So you'll know that one of them is going to get skipped, but you know you're going to get 3 different ones before you get to phase 2, where
Hmm.
you've got a similar structure happening.
Is this where like the actions that they take are more powerful or something?
Phase 2, they will have stronger actions, but
Okay.
one of the biggest points is, remember I said they went desert, wetland, wetland. That would have meant that phase 2 would have started on that second wetland, because that's the only way you get to repeat lands.
Oh, I don't think I totally followed that. So, what is the desert wetland thing?
You have on every board, there is 2 of every type of land. So there's
Oh,
2
okay.
wetlands on this board, 2 mountains on this board, 2 deserts on this board, and 2 forests
Okay.
on this board. And
Hmm.
then the next one, the other board has the exact same layout. They're going to be touching different things. So imagine the ones that are touching the
Oh.
coast, which will matter later, is mountain, wetland, desert, and the other one has forest, forest, mountain, or something.
That's where they're coming onto the island, and there's some non-ocean tiles, basically.
Yeah, they come in from essentially this ocean area, and
Okay.
you can stop them from attacking certain areas if you can find ways to isolate them.
Hmm. Like if
Um,
you basically block up all the forests that are on the coast, you could keep them from settling the coast.
Coasts are kind of the exception to the
Oh,
rule.
all right, fair enough.
Everywhere but the coast is much
Okay.
easier to protect because you can,
Uh,
if you the explore phase, remember, so you flip over a card and they explore in that location, and they'll explore typically in those. If you're playing 2 players, it would be 4 of that land, and if it was 6 players, it'd be 6 lands of
hmm.
those locations, and maybe one of them is doesn't have any buildings nearby. That means it won't
Hmm.
explore into those buildings unless it's coastal, which is the exception to that rule.
Explore is sort of like new units arriving.
New explorers arrive, and then build is where you add buildings where you already have explorers or buildings.
Hmm.
And then ravage is where everything just attacks
Hmm.
where it's at. So if you say we're going to ravage in the forests, you'll look at every forest and you will ravage in each one individually.
Hmm.
And if there's no one in that land, no invaders, there's no ravage happen.
Hmm. So explore is sort of the phase where new units get created, and then some of them move inland. Is that right?
Some adversaries will move them around, and
Oh,
some
okay.
spirit powers will move them around.
Oh.
That's sometimes a strategy is to, instead of just killing them outright, is to move them to a land where they won't act.
Uh,
So, example, if they explore into the forest, next turn you know that they're going to build in that forest, and then the turn after that they will ravage in a forest.
they're kind of pre-programmed to hit the same terrain, but with a different action consecutively.
Yes, so the
Ah, okay.
manipulation of that is really important because if you can maneuver them differently, you
Yeah.
can avoid a lot of problems with
Yeah.
even some weaker actions.
Yeah. If you just push a guy who is on a forest off the forest, when he's told to build on forest, he's no longer on a forest. So now he just does nothing.
Yep.
Cool.
So how they ravage is basically the enemies get to attack first. They have first strike, unless you
Hmm.
have the spirit that gives you first strike later. But generally they have first strike, and they're going to attack the land,
Mm-hmm.
and then they're going to attack the Dahan. Then, if your Dahan survive, your Dahan get to fight back.
Tahan are.
The natives people of the land.
Oh, okay.
You can't control them directly per se, but you'll have power cards that can control the Dahan.
Oh,
And one of
okay.
the most common cards you'll get is a card you can play in the fast phase that gives defense to the Dahan and defense to the land to prevent the enemies from dealing as much damage.
Huh.
An explorer is the equivalent, I would say, of a 1/1. He deals 1 damage and he takes 1 damage to die.
Oh, okay.
And then you've got a town, which is a 2/2. It deals 2 damage and it takes 2 damage to die. And then you've got a city, which is the equivalent of a 3/3. It takes 3 damage to die and it deals 3 damage.
Hmm.
There are some scenarios that can change up those numbers.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
And then the Dahan are the equivalent of a 2/2 as well. But remember, they're going to always attack afterwards. So you kind of need to give them defense, or they need to
Hmm.
only take 1 damage for them to
Hmm.
fight back.
Tahan are going to have a hard time if there's a city in their tile
Oh, yes. Even just a
or
town will
town.
kill them.
Sorry, yeah, it's
Or 2
town city.
explorers.
This is a tangent, but I'm reworking through all the kanji, trying to learn those better. And like when I'm allowed to type town versus city versus village versus settlement. Oh man, I keep getting my flashcards wrong because I'm typing the wrong size of location.
Well, I have more the problem whenever we have cards that say town in their name and WotC doesn't go back and retcon them to have land dash town.
Ah, yeah, there you go.
I haven't forgotten about you, Forgotten Cave.
There you go. Oh, Forgotten Cave. They forgot about Forgotten Cave and didn't make it a cave.
In this phase feels very fun because if you can leave just like one explorer in the land, he's only
Yeah.
going to do 1 damage to that Dahan. That Dahan
Hmm.
will live, and the Dahan will kill that explorer.
Hmm.
So it's really nice if you can kind of spread out these explorers and move them to places where they'll ravage ineffectively.
Mm.
The
Hmm.
other big thing they'll do is they'll attack the land, and the land is basically an O2.
Oh.
Lands never deal damage back, but if they take 2 damage, they get blighted.
Oh. Okay.
The lose conditions in this game, big one is blight.
Ah.
If the island becomes too blighted, and by that you have a bank of blight, and if you run out of that blight, you lose.
So that blighting is basically if I leave a particular tile or a particular region undefended, eventually the settlers will damage it so much that it becomes blighted. If enough different things are blighted, or if the same thing is blighted a bunch of times, you're in trouble.
Yes. In that land, if they deal 2 or more damage, if they do 17 damage, it doesn't matter. And just like the magic adage, long life matters is the last one.
Yeah, there you go.
So blight is fun. If you already had blight in the land, not only is it going to add a second blight, but then it's going to blight an adjacent land of your choice.
Oh, okay. Getting double blighted is extra bad. Like even it's not the same amount of bad.
Yeah, so actually, as you get
Uh,
later in the game, if you chose to like take a heavy blight strategy of leaving a lot of blight around, you could
yeah,
end up with a blight cascade into a blight cascade into a blight
yeah,
cascade, and you
yeah.
probably just lose.
Kind of like Pandemic. Pandemic has some of that too.
The other lose conditions are if the invaders run out of their invader deck, it isn't a win for you to stall. You have to accomplish a win.
Hmm. Okay.
Also, many adversaries come with the condition. The example I want to bring up is France. France has most components in this game are infinite components. You use substitutes if you need to.
Hmm.
France says no, you only have this many town tokens, which are
Hmm.
not the city tokens, it's the medium tokens.
Hmm.
And if that bank ever runs out, you die.
So we have like a couple different ways to lose. Like if I get too blighted, which is pretty close to running out of life. If the invaders run out of cards, which is maybe pretty close to milling in terms of just putting an end thing. And then we've got maybe these bonus lose conditions of like, I don't know, the equivalent of an opponent has 10 or more creatures, then you lose the game or something like that.
Yeah, that's a pretty common way to look at it. And because they've built a deck around it, because they have the adversaries built around it, it's more likely to happen. It's not like
Yeah.
accidentally they're going to trip into that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And of course, there's exceptions to that. Like one of them, it has an outwin condition that is not what's important about that adversary.
Hmm.
But
Yeah. So if we've got a cooperative magic or something, like this pandemic or this Spirit Island thing of like there's a bunch of resources that sort of start in play, and then eventually those will get damaged. And if too many of them get damaged, then it's GG. Like, I don't know, like a basic version. It's a multiplayer version, like a cooperative version of Magic where everyone starts with 5 lands in play, and then lands start getting destroyed by the AI deck. Is lands the right thing to use? Should we start with something else? Maybe something in there.
I've tried to build an AI version based on the Hydra many years ago.
Yeah.
I want to try it again, but I don't know if you have the problem of 15 different projects. So you start one for like 2 days and then go back and do a different one, and then that one sits
Yeah.
about too long.
I think the version of that for me is the Vanguard cube, where the Vanguard's in there and you play some multiplayer. You theme it after old Magic, kind of Urza's era stuff. Oh, what we got to do at some point on the pod is talk about the turtle team up, the Ninja Turtles like cooperative against the Foot Clan. I want to get a couple of games of that in.
Is that a product
Uh,
that's what's it put out?
yeah, Turtle team up. It's like a 4 player versus an AI deck. 2 to 4 player versus like an AI deck. I haven't played it yet. I brought it up, but I can't actually contribute what it's like to play it. But
I played
uh,
the Hydra one a couple times and a couple of the
yeah.
Minotaur one that was similar, and I remember people being like, "Oh, how to win is you just use the Demure mechanic that was around at that time that was mill into the hit a land
Oh,
because that deck didn't have lands."
yeah. I played the Minotaur one a couple times successfully with some kind of like startery cards with some people who didn't know how to play Magic and or didn't know it very well. And it was actually quite nice for that because it's like even further than what Commander does. Like Commander, like if you're new to the game, you can just kind of be chill and no one will target you because you're not the threat. But if it's cooperative, you can even ask for help mid game. You can say, "Should I play this or should I play that?" Um, I kind of want to try the retail Ninja Turtle thing to see how they cracked it, how they made challenges. Spirit Island is all in on all of you versus the AI. Are you competing against each other at all, or this is fully co-op?
Fully cooperative.
Oh, okay.
The big change I find with the game though is there's sometimes it feels sad when someone's like, I want to blow up that big problem, and someone else wants to blow it up, and that's just a table problem of you need to have that discussion of who gets to do the big cool thing.
Oh,
Because one of the solutions in this game is pretty often is you shove things into a problem, you let one problem fester, and then you hit it with a giant
uh,
spell, basically.
yeah, yeah. I want to create that feeling. That's what I want to do. How do we do that in Magic? What is the big problem? What is the thing we're putting off that we can then fix later? Uh, I guess you kind of one of the funny things with cooperative stuff in Magic, like you're talking about, like just like a grind or whatever from Demir. Any of the AI decks that exist, if you just bring a certain strategy to it, the AI deck will never win. you know, so you kind of need to disallow that strategy or somehow control the card pool. Maybe you're all drafting together and then you play against the AI afterwards, so you have like a cube versus an AI.
I like the cube idea because I did do just trying to let people play their deck, which feels good when people go, "Oh, this is my deck. I want to play it against it." And the amount of patches I had to put on there of,
Yeah.
I think the cleanest one I had that still was crazy was the I called it the Nexus at the time. The
Yeah.
Nexus just can't. If you try to say it can't with any like can't cards, it just can't.
Yeah. The bringing arbitrary magic decks against the AI, like what does Thoughtseize do? Does Thoughtseize even work? Can I make them discard? Not always. They're not always designed to work with those
Yeah,
mechanics. Yeah.
I'm not even worried about that because commander decks don't play discard.
Yeah, that's true. All right, fair enough. Maybe something in the cube range is what we're thinking about here when we're comparing Spirit Island because cubes still can have the feeling that each person's deck is very, very different, but it still allows you to constrain the mechanics just enough that the other things you want to have for your format will still happen. Um, if we like, as an example, if we want like the adversary to be basically like pretty good at destroying artifacts, it's destroying some of them regularly, and it's us to be clever about which ones get destroyed. Well, we kind of need like a critical mass of artifacts to be in the format such that like we can't just like completely avoid having any artifacts so that artifact destruction just never matters. Or if there's only a little bit of artifacts, then whoever's playing the artifact deck is just hosed because all their stuff is getting blown up and no one else's stuff is getting touched.
I know one thing with the adversaries in this one is you kind of set up the adversaries and you have your spirits you choose, and sometimes you
Mm.
can pick matchups that are favorable.
Mhm.
But one thing I hadn't really thought about was using the weird loop system we were talking about earlier, where you play all your cards, then you reclaim, and then you replay them,
Mhm, mhm.
which kind of lets you know what's going to happen. So something I would like to do for like cooperative versus an AI
Mm.
is having it do something that's predictable enough.
Yeah.
Something this
Yeah,
game
yeah.
does well is saying you're going to have this happen, but there is a little bit of chaos you aren't sure what's going to happen. They have an event deck you add for
Mm.
really adding like an extra level of you're not sure what's going to happen during this
Mm.
window,
Mhm.
but generally you know what's going to happen this turn and next turn. But also remember, a lot of your cards, as I'm circling back to this, have a fast phase and a slow phase, which is between the invader phases in the middle. So if you
Mm.
had a card that says, I want to just destroy a town,
Mm.
if it's a slow card, if you draft that card, it can't stop the ravage that turn because
Mm.
you're going to queue it up and then they're going to ravage. Then your queued up card's going to resolve the slow phase.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
they have really strong slow cards that can deal with problems, or they have to be fast to deal with the problems right now. So it rewards you to think ahead.
Hmm.
And one of the problems I had with doing any of these, like play against the Hydra, is they're always just flip off the top, deal with the problem right now.
Yeah.
And not this like impending sense of here's what's going to happen. And maybe even using this looping mechanic of reclaiming, this is what's going to happen. And then it's going to reset and then do it again and then reset and then do it again.
Yeah, the kinda do it again, I think, also will help, like a Hydra type situation, 'cause, a common problem with those kinda cooperative things is it takes long enough to, like, comprehend your own hand, but to, like, comprehend everyone's hand takes forever because each deck has 30 different cards in it. If you have a little bit of looping, you at least can get, like, I don't know, if I can cast negate every 2 to 4 turns against the AI, everyone else starts to know that I can cast negate. And so we can start to take into account, like, okay, well, we know that this kind of spell is going to get cast in a turn or two. So don't use your negate on the smaller thing. Wait so that you have it ready for the really important thing that we know is coming in the next couple turns.
Maybe
Um,
something like it flips over 3 cards. And you get to
mm,
pick the order it plays those 3 cards, and then next turn it flips over them by 3, but say based on the number of players. So you're
yeah.
playing 3 people against AI. You
Yeah.
flip over 3 cards, and then you get to choose this is the one it plays this turn, this is the one it plays next turn, and then you flip over 3 more cards the next turn, and it
Hmm.
plays one of them immediately. It plays the other one you queued up from the turn before, and then you queue up the next 2, and you have this like
Hmm.
chain, and so it's always on turn 3 it will play 3 cards, and from then on it will play 3 cards. So the first
Hmm.
turn it plays one, second turn it play two, then three.
3, 3, 3, 3, or whatever.
And I guess if you
Yeah.
go 4 player game, I guess that doesn't scale quite right. Because
Yeah.
that would
You could get those details down, but I
yeah.
think maybe that mixture is kind of fun of the, like, I know these 2 cards are coming in this hidden card. The last of the 3 cards is hidden, or, we'll cast this instant before combat every time. So we know if we care about this instant, we have to get set up in our first main for this to happen. And then it's gonna shoot the second largest creature by power. Like, that's what it's gonna do. So we can either just let that happen, or we could play a new creature to change who the second biggest creature is, or something like that.
Are you also looking at the turtle deck and it's that event villain infiltration? As a team, the heroes choose a creature with the greatest power among creatures they control, destroy it.
I'm not looking at it right now.
I pulled up the announcement and it's literally the first card in their like the WotC's version of the layout.
Oh, fun.
It has events, it's got creatures it looks like, and bosses.
I definitely have to play it because
Yeah.
I think, like, cracking, you're calling it the Hydra deck, but cracking something like that would be pretty fun. I guess. I think somewhere in the cube range. If you're playing cooperative, repetitiveness isn't that big a deal. If I get to cast, like I said, negate every 2 to 4 turns, in normal Magic, that would be really obnoxious.
I would say it is obnoxious, but in co-op, you want to have the right level of obnoxious. Because if it
Yeah.
does nothing and just rolls over, it's not a fun experience. And one thing about Spirit Island that's really nice is they actually have this like granular system to add the right level of difficulty. Because every adversary comes with 6 levels.
Hmm.
And you have scenarios you can modify. You could even play two adversaries.
Yeah.
There's a few other modifiers you can do.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, a lot of that comes with complexity.
That's where like the cube angle is nice because we wouldn't want the like kind of commander level complexity on something that we're adding extra complexity to. Commander games already put basically every player at that game into some amount of overload. We'd have to be a little conservative about what cards we give the players just so they don't get overloaded all the time.
I will say the other ones in this game to say, just so there's no, I don't miss out anything. So someone's listening from Spirit Island, they're not like
Mhm,
baffled I
mhm.
didn't go over some of these mechanics.
Ha, 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 ha.
At the end of your turn, just like Magic, you're going to clean up all of the damage.
Oh, okay.
And here's what I want to bring up where the spirits have lots of variance in their
Oh,
things.
okay.
When you clean up all the damage, there's an example spirit, Shroud of Silent Mist, which I love
Hmm.
the names. They're not
Mhm.
like Bob Swanson. It's just like, so Shroud of Silent Mist, their passive is where their presence tokens are, invaders don't heal.
Hmm.
And neither do your Dahan. So the other thing you could do in this game is you could technically deal a damage during the fast phase and then deal a damage during the slow phase, and that's 2 damage, and that would kill a
Yeah.
town. But
Mhm.
with Shroud of Silent Mist, they want to have damaged things, and other
Hmm.
people can come by and finish them off, or they could finish them off, or they can just let them sit there damaged, and they have another passive that says for everything that's damaged in areas, they gain benefits like energy every turn.
Hmm.
It's also filled with a lot of flavorful changes. So Shroud of Silent Mist isn't my favorite spirit to play, nor a spirit that I think is particularly powerful in the like tier rankings of spirits. But thematically, they have such small flavor wins. Like when you draft cards, they're going to have symbols on those cards. And if he drafts cards that don't have fire symbols, he gains energy. So like the idea is like light makes him worse. He doesn't want to have like fire and heat and light. He
Hmm.
wants to have darkness and shadows. So he gains benefits from not drafting fire icons. And also in this, I mentioned you put up your presence tokens on the island.
Yeah.
Your cards are going to have ranges. Like this has
Ah, yeah.
range 2, so you
Mhm.
pick 2 from one of your tokens
Yeah.
and you can hit that land. Or you need a range 1 of a sacred site, which is where you've double stacked your tokens.
Yeah.
And so Shroud of Silent Mist has range 0 on all of his start cards.
Huh.
Range 0 meaning you have to be in the land itself.
Huh.
But he has another passive, which is anytime you play a ability or anything like that, you could move one of your presence one closer to the target.
Hmm. Okay.
And that allows you to be really fluid. Some spirits are you put yourself down and you kind of stay where you are. You spread out a little bit, but he could theoretically, if he cast like 2 minor abilities and 2 major abilities in a turn, he could have 4 of his presence go on a hike across the island as you
Huh.
spend targeting lands in a chain as he
Huh.
sends himself into a mist essentially.
Okay. Normally, I can fire a catapult, 2 or 3 squares or 2 or 3 tiles away, but this guy doesn't. This guy's all melee, but is fast moving.
Yeah, and moving's weird because most spirits aren't moving their presence. This is very much an exception to the rule.
Yeah,
There are
yeah.
definitely other ones that can, but I would say maybe 10% of the spirits can move their presence often.
Huh.
And that's one of the things I liked about this game was the exceptions because it put a nice textured space, same as Magic. You put this nice textured, cool complexity, and then you build up within that complexity little exceptions, and they teach some ways it teaches you the rules. I'm a big proponent of learning
Yeah.
rules from exceptions. Like First Strike teaches you that combat damage is simultaneous.
Simultaneous. Yeah.
Vigilance teaches you have to tap to attack. Those are good
Hmm.
ways of learning these things. And he kind of teaches you that range 0 can target like can't target other lands, but there's a way to break that.
Hmm.
He teaches you that damage heals every turn because otherwise, why would it make sense for his thing?
So those are some of your favorites. The what were they called? The spirit swirling mists.
Shroud of Silent Mist.
Oh, okay.
Another example is Lightning Swift Strike.
Oh.
He's a very simple spirit. All of his power cards he plays, basically, he could turn them from slow to fast.
Oh. Okay.
And also, he has the ability to give other people that ability, where he can speed up other people's slow cards to fast.
Oh, hell yeah.
He also has a weird gimmick because everything has to have enough texture to be a full like difference from each other. Is his tracks? He has awful energy gain. He has awful card gaining like drafting card ability, but
Oh,
he has
okay.
the best amount of card plays.
Huh.
Very cheaply, he can rip off a few presence tokens, and he has like 4 to 6 card plays.
Oh,
And he's
okay.
never getting enough energy to play them, and he's never getting enough of those to play. But theoretically, if you can play other spirits
Yeah.
who can support him by giving him energy and giving him power cards, then he can go crazy by going playing so many cards. He has extra card plays, and then he has the speed to speed them up.
Hmm.
And sometimes a power card that's supposed to be slow is one of its weaknesses. Now it's a strength because you can play it fast.
Yeah. Okay. So this the spirit itself is not a unit on the island. It's like these presence things that kind of indicate where their power is. Is that true?
Yeah, your presence represents like your
Temples or
strength on the island.
right.
It's not supposed to be like the Dahan are building them for you per se. It's supposed
Yeah.
to be your influence. I guess kind of like magic's like your ley lines attached to the lands. It's not like
Where your avatars are walking around. Yeah. Okay.
yeah. I guess there
I
is one
guess.
spirit who is an avatar. Like
Oh.
they
Oh
look
yeah.
like a human. They go into like looking like humans versus the rest feel very much elemental.
Yeah.
Swift Strike is kind of like a bird though. He looks like a bird made of lightning.
So what I'm trying to think through here is like rather than being like a commander, it's almost like a character that then dictates the couple cards that you have in the command zone. If we had this analogy earlier of like, I have 3 cards in the command zone, they're not 3 arbitrary cards. I pick one thing that then gives me access to all of those different powers. Like in Swift's example, all my stuff is fast and I have my tracks are weird for some reason.
I guess the other mechanic this game has is comparable to Magic in a unique way. So, Lightning Swift Strike, he has a more nuanced version. For every air symbol he plays,
Hmm.
he gets to speed up one of his cards. So, technically, if you end up drafting a bunch of cards that don't have air symbols, you actually will be forced to play with the normal speeds.
Hmm.
But
Oh,
all of
okay.
his start cards come with air symbols because every card has a cost to play, a
Hmm.
speed of which it activates, a
Yeah.
range, and sometimes has targeting restrictions like it can only hit forest and wetlands.
Hmm.
And they will also have a queue of elements on the left. And some only have one, some will have like 4 or 5 elements
Hmm.
on the left. And what you do is you queue up all your cards
Hmm.
and you'll add up all the elements you have for that turn, including sometimes you'll have elements from your tracks.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So your track might start with like gives you start with 2 energy. The next one, if you pull a disc off, gives you 3, and then the next one gives you a fire symbol, and then the
Yeah.
next one will be 4. It's not a
Huh.
linear track. They're sometimes filled with other symbols there, and those symbols give you access to, as I was saying there, a special power to speed up things. The other thing gives you is you'll have a power at the bottom that says if you can get these 2 to 3 elements at these levels, you unlock these free powers.
Huh.
So if a good example is one spirit, if he gets a single blue,
Hmm.
he can move one of his presence as an action. If he can get 2 blue, 1 earth, and 1 leaf, I think, he can
Hmm.
deal 1 damage in the land he moves to
Hmm.
and shove a Dahan. And then as you go higher, he deals more damage, and you want to get more symbols. It's kind of like collecting devotion and storm. Like
Hmm.
it's like you had to play devotion storm, I guess, is a good way of thinking about it.
Yeah, you have these side effects of your spells that also you can get to cash in that turn. If I cast 2 different blue spells at a turn, I get to also give something flying until end of turn.
Yeah, so here's an example card just in Spirit Island called Talons of Lightning.
Hmm.
It's a very expensive card. It costs 6 energy. It's
Oh, okay.
fast,
Hmm.
and it deals 5 damage, range 1 from your presence, to a mountain or wetland. It's also going to generate 3 fear, which I know we haven't talked about fear at all, but it also gives you a fire symbol and an air symbol. And if you have 3 fire and 3 air, you also can destroy 1 town in each adjacent land and increase this range to 3. So
Hmm.
you can pick a range 3 from your presence.
Okay.
So it has a default use and then has the kicker is a good way of thinking about it. But its
Oh, almost
kicker,
like a devotion kicker, sort of.
yeah. So the bird, I was just talking to Lightning Bird, he has a bunch of fire symbols and air symbols, so he's likely to be able to kick this Talons of Lightning. But
Hmm.
Shroud of Mists, he's not going to have any fire symbols. We actively talked about why he doesn't want to draft cards with fire symbols,
Hmm.
so it's very rare he's going to be able to kick that card. So he might not want to draft that card. If he sees it, he might
Hmm.
see a different card that has value. Or he takes
Hmm.
Talons of Lightning because it still just solves the problem he has right there.
Hmm.
And he doesn't care that it has a kicker he won't get to.
Hmm. Wait, so the symbols that are that are getting generated that we're talking about, this devotion-y thing, is this shared between all players or?
It's not, but that's where I
Oh,
was saying the draft. If you were to draft these cards and look at them, the
oh,
asymmetry comes in of, oh, this card looks better for me because I'm playing this spirit.
oh,
Versus if you were
okay.
to look at that same four cards because you drafted a turn earlier, you would have different feelings on those cards,
Mm.
which leads to variants. I think like Magic, where if you were to play you look at two cards and see that difference. You feel those differences and that those nuances feel interesting because like a lot of
Yeah.
people print side grades that are more interesting for some people
Okay.
because they have that variance baked into their differences.
Yeah, so maybe what I'm seeing here is like we're gonna have a much smaller deck per player. We're gonna have like a command zone-y sort of thing. How we get that command zone, I don't really know. But part of what you're thinking is like if we are only drafting, I'm making this up, 12 cards each, we could do the draft face up, and then that could be part of the cooperative activity that we participate in, where we're sort of saying like, I have to make my pick out of my pack. I'm going to take this. Does anyone need me to not take that? And then, then I pass that pack to the next person, and then they take a card based off of that. And then, maybe we start with packs of four or something. So it's pick one out of four, then pick one out of three, one out of two, and then the last one goes to the last person. This is part of the face up activity that we could have where we could start to see what the synergies each person has.
So it'd be too much interlocking and on top of Magic systems, but
Yeah.
could you make that same draft as part of the enemy's drafting? Like if you were to flip over five cards from the enemy deck, you as a group take two of them and then you have to fight against the other three.
Hmm. Like you're choosing which actions the enemy gets to take almost.
Yeah, because you could imagine the enemy is going to get
Hmm.
half the cards you don't draft.
Yeah.
Like you're basically playing factor fiction kind of with an AI, I guess, and then you have to deal with what you did.
Yeah. Okay. There's some advantages to that because that also like smooths the outliers a little bit. Where if it's like each player sacks a creature on turn two, well, we all lost our one creature and now we're all like way behind. you know we still have to deal we can, but then we can say, oh, no, 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 don't do that card, but suffer all the other ones. We lose life, we have to discard a card, whatever else. You see there are four things the enemies are going to do, and you can nix one of them, you can nix two of them.
I don't know if that's too many overlaying because you maybe also find a way to make the AI treat the cards differently than you would treat them.
Hmm. Oh yeah, I guess maybe that's part of what you're doing is
Because you
like,
would just you would grab the cards that are just the strongest and you would just take them and you give the AI the garbage.
but maybe the garbageness, yeah. It's like garbage for players, but actually like kind of sick for the AI.
So maybe you'll take a bad card because you can't let the AI take a good card. So you'll take a card that's bad for yourself.
Yeah, there's some mixture of that for sure. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, like because like the example of each opponent sacrifices a creature is like okay as a player against the AI because presumably the AI has a lot of creatures, but it's awesome as the AI against the players. So
Uh,
you
yeah.
kind of want to take it to keep it out of their hand, something like that. Each ally gains two life. Well, that's like great for us, bad for the AI. Like it's if we could stick the AI with that, then it doesn't get a huge benefit out of it.
So I mentioned fear in Spirit Island. I guess I should mention the win condition at some point.
Yeah, I don't think what was fear again?
As you play the game, you're going to generate fear. You can play cards like I just said with the Talon of Lightning that just gives you fear as a resource.
Hmm.
You'll have a pool of it based on the player count,
Yeah.
and you'll remove it. Once you've removed enough fear from the pool, you gain a fear card and return all the fear back to the pool. And you'll do that over and over again as you generate fear.
Is fear good or?
Fear is good because you're trying to scare the invaders away.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Back on board. Like, why do I want to generate fear?
It's a weird one
Because
because
we're trying to spook. Yeah, we're trying to like a haunted house, Home Alone. We're trying to get yeah.
so fear does two things. It gives you these minor fear cards that help you solve problems. It's also just victory points because the way you win is you get enough fear cards to match whatever's on the board, including if you were to just run the fear deck all the way through, as in generating enough fear to get it on the fear cards to go all the way through to the
Hmm.
bottom fear card just says you win the game.
Hmm.
And some spirits, that is their game plan.
To just power through it. Okay.
You also get fear from destroying invaders. So if you kill an explorer, you get 0 fear. If you kill a town, you get 1 fear. If you kill a city, you get so 1 less than the size they are.
Huh.
The other win conditions are if you can get rid of like the stage 3 fear, so you've punched through most of the fear deck, is if you can just get rid of the big buildings, the towns.
Huh.
Stage 3, the conditions most of the way through the deck is when you get rid of all the cities, which is one of the ones a lot of spirits end up aiming for. And if you're not like a lot of spirits go for that victory because just get rid of all the big cities, and you haven't let them build very many big cities by disrupting them.
Hmm.
Get through the fear deck because you have enough automatic fear generation from the stuff you've drafted or you have on your powers. That's a pretty consistent win condition.
Hmm.
Versus getting rid of all. If you try to win at stage 0 or stage 1, you have to get rid of all of the invaders. And that is
Oh.
difficult when they're just vomiting out invaders all the time, and they start with a bunch of invaders to begin with. So it's you kind of
Hmm.
have to get a mix of fear and managing the board to win the game.
So then, like, I'm trying to generate fear because fear is like it's almost like a surplus. The more surplus fear I have, the more bonuses I activate, the cooler everything is. And so that's like a greedy aspirational thing. Whereas like dealing with all the troops on the board is more of a practical reality. I don't want all my lands to get damaged. I need to continue, handling those little problems.
No, I would say like generate 3 fear as a card that just said 0 energy, take slow, generate 3 fear. Kind of
Okay.
feels like lightning bolt.
Oh,
You can see fear as
interesting.
the enemy's health total as like as the boss, like the person who's sending all these people in. Once
Huh.
you've dealt enough damage to them, they lose because you got to the bottom of the fear deck.
But like if I just try to cast only lava axes, then I'll get overwhelmed.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
So the spirit who does that is called Bringer of Dreams and Nightmares.
Hell yeah.
He's probably one of the most combo-tastic spirits because his
Hmm.
passive is he can't use power cards to like to directly destroy invaders.
Okay.
Instead, it just shoves them and generates bonus fear instead of the default fear.
Hmm.
So his win condition is get to the bottom of the fear deck. There
Mhm.
are some combinations of things you can do to generate like upwards of 60 fear in a turn, which
Mhm.
is I think the entire fear pool several times over to the which would create honestly a win right there. Because you can get multiple fear cards in one turn. So some people have, schemed up little combos, kind of like we're doing infinite combos of Magic, to do
Mhm.
stuff like that in this game.
Mm.
And he's a
Okay.
pretty common guy because he lets you do extra damage to the fear pool when normally your spell can only target the one land. I think it's a general rule in this game is spells are going to only
Oh,
target one land.
okay.
So since he keeps them in that one land and just keeps damaging them over and over again and re-killing them and resetting their fear,
Hmm.
kind of one of the few ways to combo in a crazy way in this game.
Wow. I'm trying to understand the kind of balance of like going for fear versus other things, and it seems to be like face damage versus board control.
Yeah, that's a pretty good common
Face
pattern.
damage that also gives you some other kind of bonus. Is that what this reset fear concept is?
Um, I would say more like imagine if you were to be attacking with trample creatures all the time.
Hmm.
You're hitting the opponent's face and you're killing their blockers,
Okay.
so they can't attack you is kind of how it
Hmm.
feels.
Oh, okay.
And most
Huh.
people just have to do that. And Bringers of Dreams and Nightmares, like, what if I find a way to turbo fog and then just play cards that just directly burn their face? That's what it kind of feels like. He has to find ways to not die, as you're
Yeah.
saying, because he's not killing them, and he just needs to deal damage to their face. I guess if you had a fog that made your opponents lose life, Batwing Bruna would be the closest it feels like.
Okay. Yeah.
But imagine if you're just looping Batwing Bruna every turn.
And that's where you're getting like the variety between the different factions. Like if there are there like 5, 10 different spirits to play as, something like that.
There are 37.
Oh, okay. Well, that's where you're getting the variety. It's like today I'm playing with Fog Guy. I've never played with Fog Guy before.
You could draft the cards that are the major deck, which have those 6 cost cards. I told you about that.
Hmm.
6 cost cards versus a more common card costs zero, one energy.
Hmm.
And when you take a major, you have to trash another card, like
Oh.
permanently remove it from your pool.
Major is like a class of spell or something?
Yeah, you have unique power cards, the ones you start with, minor
Uh,
power cards you can draft, which cost 0 to 1 energy, and then
uh,
majors cost from 2 to 9, typically at that 4, 3, and 4 range.
but then it like erases one of my command zone cards or whatever when I take it.
You could draft a minor and then trash that minor card if you
Oh,
wanted to.
okay.
You
Yeah.
can even mid game or late game, you can trash a major. Like you could draft a major and then trash a different major card. Also, the cool thing with this game, and it feels so, moments like in Magic, you just feel good when you make like
Hmm.
sacrificing a creature that you're blocking with. Those
Hmm.
moments
Sure.
is trashing a card from your major when you're drafting a major is trashing a card you've already played. As in, it's a card you have like in your discard
Oh,
pile.
okay.
You'll
Yeah.
get it from the reclaim later, but like that's not a card in your hand. It's not really a resource yet. It
Yeah.
feels free versus
Hmm.
trashing a card that's in your hand. You're like, oh, I could have played this turn or next turn.
Hmm. Like sacrificing a creature that has a ETB. Yeah, I kind of like having a creature on the board, but I already got half of my value already.
Yeah. And then you also look at all the space this game hasn't had the ability to tap into
Hmm.
because of it only has so many expansions. It doesn't have 30 years of Magic.
Hmm.
Like something it doesn't have that baffles me is in Spirit Island, there are no cards that you play and then self trash themselves after one play.
Hmm.
Or at least there's not enough of them. Because I think that's such a cool space of, oh, do you want to give up to have
Yeah.
a stronger card in exchange for you'll have to draft more cards to have enough card economy
Yeah.
later?
Once ever. Yeah. Yeah, that seems good. That's like the the rip it up uncards where it's like a blacker lotus that taps for 4 mana and then you tear it up.
I guess that's another way you could do. I thought about making cooperative games in like the sense of you as a group are trying to decide what you're trying to fight. We're circling back to that idea of the
Yeah.
queue of things you're trying to fight is if the cards you're playing, some of them you use for a benefit now and then they go away forever versus you
Hmm.
play them eternally over and over again for a
Hmm.
minor benefit is an agency point.
Yeah, maybe what you'd want to do is like have a I don't know what to call it, exiling. Like have a decent amount of exile cards. Exile being a higher cost in this format than normal because you get your graveyard back pretty often.
Oh yeah.
I have a lot of cards that exile by default, and I sort of balance the environment around like a third of the cards exile themselves. And so like I'm often making this decision you're talking about of like something that I'm going to get back multiple times versus a card that I get to play once is devastating, like a wrath or something. Like I don't get to recast a wrath over and over against the AI. But if I draft that, I only get one use out of it. Whereas if I draft like shock, I get to recast shock all the time, two, three, four times over the course of the game.
I find it weird that this game has inspired a lot by Magic. You can tell by the first strike, and you can tell by just the
Sure.
economy of things that they're messing with. Because I feel like but then it feels so hard to actually port some of the effects one to one because he's created such a different textured space. Because there is still
Yeah.
a board. I know we're talking about all these card plays and stuff, but there's still a board. So moving a unit from one space to another in Magic doesn't have like a connection at all. But this game
Yeah.
added that. But it
Hmm.
also meant we spent 2 hours trying to learn some ideas of these games,
Yeah.
and it's a great game. It's a hard one to teach, particularly if someone hasn't played Magic, because I can't say stuff like the damage heals at the end of turn. They're like, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Enough of the concepts are similar enough, like the amount of mana you have, and yeah, I think kind of as we're starting to wind down here, there are some definite pieces that I think are inspirational to me, like additional layers to put into co-op gameplay. I think we haven't seen many attempts at like complete co-op Magic experiences, or they've been like kind of naturally quite breakable. I do want to try this Ninja Turtle thing, but like more environments, more like kind of closed environments that are built for co-op that have card choices that are optimized for that co-op thing. How do you distribute those cards for co-op? Is it a draft? Is it sealed? Is it this like half draft where I'm also feeding cards to the AI? Um, I just had an idea there. Like expensive spells. If the AI doesn't have to pay for spells, but and nobody drafts the expensive spell, well, you have to play against a thing that they can cast really easily and you guys can't.
Oh, that's pretty good. I guess the other way we could have the agency of you can burn resources now to solve the problem
Yeah.
versus saving resources later. We could have like your mana base naturally can cannibalize itself for value.
Yeah. 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 Things that you can't really dare to do on one because like normal limited play just has a bunch of shapes. Like losing lands is really bad. Not drawing a card is really bad. But in a co-op space, you could say, I don't draw a card this turn, and in exchange, something great happens. Like you
Oh,
can afford to do that in multiplayer.
I have the
Um,
opposite opinion of WotC won't let us cannibalize her mana base for value because the moment they let us do it, we use it for combos and instantly win games.
yeah, maybe there's that half too. Yeah, it's bad in general limited gameplay. It's also bad in high end combo. So it creates two like bad ends. But if we're in this like cooperative thing, I I can only be so busted, right?
Also feels you can manage that busted.
Yeah, yeah. I think the other kind of concept that you have is sort of like a commander that sort of brings along like multiple sort of eminency abilities, which is like not something we want to inject in a regular commander. But in this kind of co-op space, like, oh, I draw two cards a turn, but I can't have more than four lands in play. Like you could do that. You could have that in like a more closed environment, and adding more stuff that you have permanently accessible to you, like might create a new feeling where players could learn each other's capabilities better, which is important for co-op because we need to be able to plan ahead and work together well. Like having more of it be face up is maybe okay in co-op, whereas it's less good in like open multiplayer.
Yeah, you could do a draft of conspiracies ahead of time
Yeah,
so
conspiracies.
then
Yeah,
everyone has a pile of conspiracies that interlock with each other. So instead of having just this is the one conspiracy, you can make it modular like magic so that like I
yeah.
drafted the toughness matters conspiracy with the
Mhm.
haste conspiracy. Next time we play this game, you draft toughness matters and the something that says you can
Menace.
all
Yeah,
creatures lose power or something.
yeah. Oh,
So you don't
okay.
care because you have toughness matters.
There's room to do more in co-op. I think the Ninja Turtle set has started to do like this kind of hybrid between cards that just like put units in play and cards that modify those units. And that seems to be the two pieces of the TMNT deck. Like, but there are things that we could also do with the player deck to make the player decks a little bit more novel too. Maybe that makes it less good for teaching people, which is like half of the joy of a co-op game, so you could teach people easily. But we're the sickos. We we want Magic to be as like novel and cool as possible.
Well, actually, thinking of this, the co-op angle, I had a problem a couple weeks ago playing with somebody. Where playing as circling back to that limited information co-op games. Is they were feeling really bad because they were struggling. We were losing because they were messing up.
Hmm.
Asterisk. If a game's out of communication, everyone's messing up if somebody messes up. But
Hmm.
they were the one who was signaling improperly in the way he was perceiving himself that way.
Hmm.
And it felt worse to have when he was having us all lose versus if we were
Hmm.
playing a game where he could
Yeah.
just lose the game and it doesn't just derail the entire game.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
But also, I find those are such moments of I'm actually encouraged to sit down and say, "Hey, let's talk through what we should have done here." Versus in a game of Magic, sometimes that doesn't feel good or feels
Hmm.
condescending to sit down and be like, "Hey, let's talk through what you should have sequenced and what you should have done."
Yeah, the quarterbackiness can get annoying, even if it's uh has good intentions.
Yeah, or you're not incentivized to do it in a tournament.
Yeah, yeah, in a tournament, yeah. All right, yeah. Spirit Island sounds pretty cool. I had heard about this game, but and I know some people are pretty passionate about it, but I had not tried to dive in. So it's nice to get a glimpse of it.
It is currently number 11 on BGG.
Oh, okay. Wow, that's really legit. All right, cool. So yeah, thanks for that breakdown. Any last thoughts on Spirit Island, or did you get out enough to get people tempted?
I do want to say there is some custom content for Spirit Island
Oh,
that I haven't personally engaged with, but I know it's out there. Several people who make spirits, and it's kind of interesting because it's cooperative stuff we've talked about.
yeah.
There's two digital clients. One is a tabletop sim mod that you can
Hmm.
play that
Hmm.
is not that people make and add stuff to all the time. And there's
Hmm.
also a Steam and mobile client, so you can play it on your
Okay.
phone or play it on
Hmm.
Steam. Obviously, the Steam mobile client doesn't have the custom stuff.
Yeah.
And
Cool.
even the designer has put out stuff that they call apocryphal spirits.
Oh.
It's a spirit that they're like, we have not play tested these. These also thematic. They
Uh,
don't work for a couple reasons, but people can
yeah.
print them up and play them if they want to. So
Oh, there you
those are
go.
fun and available. And the other big shout out, Urbis Protector. It's
Yeah.
obviously an amazing card. And also shout out to Madcap Skills, the card that made Urbis Protector irrelevant in its draft format. And if
There you
someone
go.
doesn't know what that is, it's basically just Boomer Monsters Rage.
Yeah, there you go. It was very all in, but quite a good one. That's about it for our main topic this week, but we also have a really fun design challenge for people to work on. This is a April Fool Us challenge. So Juliet and I are the fools, and everyone else is trying to clown on us a little bit. The gist of the kind of April Fool's challenge that we've done before is you have to take it, either design a custom card, any card you want, or take an existing magic card and then like change its name, change the creature types if you need to, things in that range. And then make it so that we can't guess correctly whether this is an existing renamed card or uh, a custom card that you've made to seem like a real card. This was a super fun event last year. Juliet now is like a puppet mastering in an additional twist. If you submit an existing card, you have to color shift it. So if it was red, it can't have red in its new color. It can go red to colorless, it can go red to blue white, but you got to get rid of the existing colors in the card and put in a new color if you're picking an existing card. So you got to find a way to color shift. How do you feel about this challenge? You like being able to fool the hosts?
I'm very excited for these. I would like to have more things to mess with you and Juliet.
All right.
I do have a question. So if we
Yeah.
make a custom card, do we have to make a custom card and then color shift it and then submit that color shifted version? So it has to work on both the color shifted version and the non-color shifted version?
No, the
Okay.
custom card can be anything. If you make something that is, I don't know, a sorcery that draws 7 cards, we're probably unlikely to think that could have ever been in another color. So that's sort of a clue for us. Like if it's so colorful, like so color pie narrowed, like a counter spell or something, it's going to be really hard to convince us that might be a real shifted card. So that's the reason not to go too deep on, certain designs, that we can use that as a clue. But yeah, you can submit basically anything for a custom card. Maybe we'll get fooled. We got fooled a lot last year. So I haven't, but yeah, eager for all those submissions. And also thank you still for everyone last month for getting us a giga bumper crop of submissions too. So that was also very fun. That's it for our podcast for the week. Hop on the Discord. Like I said, that's where the action is. We've got a bunch of people. There's some project channels that have been pretty active lately. Juliet's Capenna channel. Miss Liz has a new channel where they're working through some stuff. And then Lava is also working through some stuff, Crafted Lava. So maybe jump in, check out what they're up to, give them some feedback and so on. Also, thanks for coming on, Otter. It was great to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Anything you want to tell people about?
Just want to encourage more people to play more board games.
Oh, okay.
And
Yeah.
give them the discipline like Magic does sometimes of like, can you really go in there and crunch into them? And also go back and be like, what I learned from that board game, bring that back to Magic.
Yeah. There's a lot of things that like I have known Magic for a long time, but it took me a while to get into the different types of board games. But now I feel like I've got the landscape and I can start to absorb new ideas and cool ideas. Oh, why did they do that way? Why did they add that element? And that's fun to discuss too.
It is unfortunate you do spend a couple hours trying to find the ruling on a card, and you can't just Google the Reddit of
Oh,
card A and card B like Magic has.
yeah, that's true. Yeah, Magic is very good for getting you answers for Magic card interactions, but not so much for board games. If you want to talk to either of us, Discord's a place to do that. And most of all, everyone, thank you for listening.